A sprinkling of disaster. The mixer's faint whir was a sorry soundtrack to Maya's sudden realization, punctuated by a sharp smack to her forehead. The sugar swans, the delicate cake topper, languished on the counter like forgotten dreams. A knot of panic tightened in her chest. Keys in hand, she nearly stumbled over Clementine, who'd chosen that precise moment for a whale song-inspired dance recital. "Sorry, Clem! Cake crisis!" Maya called, already halfway through the doorway. The sugar rush. Her bakery van, coughed to life, emitting a plume of exhaust that reeked faintly of caramelized sugar gone wrong. She sped through Willow Creek's familiar lanes, her pace enough to make her grandmother's pearls tremble. Mentally, she crafted an apology for the wedding planner she'd spoken with earlier, a woman already stretched thin. The venue, a stately manor overlooking the river, buzzed with celebratory energy. Cars jammed the drive, and the air vibrated with music and chatter. Parking hastily near the service entrance, Maya snatched the box containing the swans, inhaling deeply. Her apron, usually a source of pride, now felt like an awkward brand, marking her as an outsider. She smoothed it down, wishing for a moment she'd traded the flour-dusted jeans for something more presentable. The reception throbbed with life. Tables adorned with white linen shimmered with crystal and polished silverware. Guests, elegantly dressed, mingled, their voices forming a gentle symphony above the band's melodies. A wave of self-consciousness threatened to engulf Maya. She didn't quite fit in. Spotting a woman with a headset barking directions into a microphone, she identified her instantly. The wedding planner. Maya approached cautiously, clutching the box. "Excuse me," she began, but a booming voice drowned out her words. "Mystic Maya! You arrived!" Startled, Maya jumped. A man radiated mischief and mirth, his eyes sparkling with an intoxicating energy. Tall, with disheveled dark hair and a suit that whispered of wealth but looked endearingly rumpled, as if he'd tangled with a bear and barely survived. He seized her hand, his grip a surprisingly firm welcome. "Liam," he announced, pumping her arm. "Groom's best man. And your #1 devotee." Maya blinked, utterly lost. I think there's been a mistake." Liam, however, was on a roll. Turning to the assembled guests, he raised his voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome from Mystic Maya. She's journeyed from a land of mystery, to share her unique gifts with us tonight." He winked at Maya, his grin widening into a full-blown spectacle. Prepare to be astounded. The music softened, and every eye focused on Maya. Clutching the cake topper box as if it were a lifeline, her cheeks flared with heat. This was a mess brewing, threatening to escalate into a spectacular confectionery catastrophe. She opened her mouth to set the record straight, to clarify this glaring error, but Liam, ever the showman, launched into a theatrical introduction. "Mystic Maya is renowned throughout the realm for her talent for. He paused, clearly winging it. "Predicting the future using culinary, divination." A smattering of polite applause drifted through the air. Maya longed for the earth to swallow her whole. She pictured herself burrowing under a table, seeking refuge. She entertained the notion of stuffing a wad of buttercream into Liam's enthusiastic mouth. He turned to her expectantly, his expression radiant. "The stage is yours, Maya. Amaze us all." Mystic Maya's debut. Liam's grip on her wrist was surprisingly firm. "Mystic Maya, everyone! Prepare to be amazed." He winked, a spark of mischievous delight in his eyes. Panic clawed at Maya's throat. She hadn't agreed to this. "Liam, wait, there's been a misunderstand." Before she could finish, the music swelled, a cheesy disco beat that vibrated through her shoes. Liam, ignoring her protests, swept her onto the makeshift dance floor in the middle of the community hall. The overhead lights, adorned with gaudy paper lanterns, spun in a dizzying kaleidoscope. She stumbled, nearly tripping over her own feet, his laughter a warm rumble in her ear. "Just go with it," he mouthed over the music, his breath tickling her cheek. "Go with what?" she managed to shout back, but it was too late. He'd already released her, gesturing grandly towards a table laden with what looked like cake decorating supplies. Sprinkles in a rainbow of colors, piping bags, spatulas of various sizes, and even a few half-finished cupcakes sat amidst the chaos of parchment paper. This was it. Improvise or die. Taking a deep breath, Maya plastered on a smile she hoped looked more confident than terrified. She grabbed a small, offset spatula, twirling it dramatically. "Greetings, seekers of destiny," she announced, her voice trembling only slightly. "Mystic Maya has arrived to unveil the secrets of your delicious futures." A few guests, initially confused, began to gather around. The bride, a bubbly redhead named Chloe, pushed her way to the front, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "Oh, this is going to be good." Thinking quickly, Maya surveyed the table. "Who wishes to know if their love life will be as sweet as buttercream?" she asked, grabbing a handful of pink sugar crystals. A giggling bridesmaid raised her hand. Maya pretended to sprinkle the crystals over the bridesmaid's head, chanting nonsense words under her breath. I see a tall, dark stranger. He enjoys long walks, and enjoys consuming large quantities of cake." The bridesmaid squealed with laughter. Next, she picked up a piping bag filled with blue frosting. "And who desires insight into their professional prospects?" she boomed, wiggling the bag suggestively. The groom, Mark, a burly man with a surprising fondness for pastel colors, stepped forward. "Lay it on me, Mystic Maya." Maya examined the piping bag with mock seriousness. "Ah, the blue frosting of opportunity. I see, a promotion. But beware, a rival coworker, who will try to steal your stapler." The hall erupted in laughter. Even Mark, a man of few words, chuckled heartily. Maya found herself relaxing, the initial terror replaced by a strange exhilaration. She was actually pulling this off. She grabbed a handful of silver dragées, holding them aloft like precious jewels. And now, for the most important question of all, who will win the next round of musical chairs? The crowd roared, pushing and shoving playfully as they scrambled for the scattered chairs. Liam watched from the sidelines, a wide grin plastered across his face. Maya caught his eye and, for the first time, felt a genuine connection, a shared moment of unexpected silliness that warmed her from the inside out. Maybe, just maybe, this disastrous mistake could turn into something interesting. Flirting with frosting. "Mystic Maya, you were captivating," Liam murmured, his voice a soft rumble that resonated through her core. He lounged against the laden dessert display, close enough for Maya to catch the intriguing blend of his cologne, a complex, woody aroma that danced in her nostrils. "Your movements, the way you commanded attention. Utterly masterful." A pang of guilt contrasted sharply with the sugary allure of the buttercream roses, drooping under the merciless heat lamps. "Thank you," she replied, her voice a touch shaky. "It's a dedication. A dedication I'm eager to explore." A playful grin etched itself onto his face, crinkling the corners of his eyes. He plucked a tiny sugar blossom from the linen, turning it idly in his fingers. "Tell me, Mystic Maya, what fuels such compelling artistry?" Maya's mind raced, searching for any plausible explanation that wouldn't expose her humiliating deception. "Life, I suppose. The subtle wonders we often miss." She hoped it sounded profound, enigmatic. It likely sounded absurd. Liam chuckled, a sound full of warmth and genuine amusement. "I suspect your everyday is considerably more enchanting than most." He edged closer, and her pulse quickened in response. "Perhaps you'd consider sharing it sometime?" Suddenly, those sugary roses seemed far less cloying. Don't be coy," he coaxed, his voice dropping to a softer register. "I assure you I'm harmless. Relatively." A wink accompanied the words, and a pleasant shiver trailed down Maya's spine. This was flirting, undeniably. And despite everything, she found herself enjoying the game. "Liam." A clipped voice sliced through the air, shattering the moment. Eleanor, the bride's sister and self-appointed guardian, stood a short distance away, arms folded tightly. "We need you." The best man is attempting to convince everyone that interpretive dance is the new must-do at weddings. Liam offered a theatrical sigh. Duty calls. However, he pivoted back to Maya, eyes gleaming with mischief. This is far from over, mystic Maya. Not even close. He returned the sugar bloom to its place and favored her with another charming grin before heading toward Eleanor, who surveyed Maya with open disapproval. As Liam departed, Maya leaned back against the dessert table, her legs betraying her with a sudden weakness. She followed his progress through the throng of guests, his effortless charisma drawing attention like a beacon. Overhearing snippets of his exchange with Eleanor, something about custom cocktails and band song requests, she felt Eleanor's gaze cut back to her, lingering for a beat before she firmly steered Liam away. A wave of heat rose up Maya's neck. She was undeniably being scrutinized. Grabbing a nearby piping bag filled with vibrant crimson frosting, she squeezed it absently, watching a glutinous blob of color ooze onto the tablecloth. This was madness. She was impersonating a mystic, enduring the advances of an incredibly attractive groomsman, and facing silent condemnation from a vigilant bridesmaid. She could simply confess the truth to Liam, admit her mistake, and retreat back into the anonymity of the catering staff. But the memory of Liam's disarming smile, the spark in his eyes when he addressed her, it presented a powerful temptation. Perhaps, just perhaps, she could sustain this fiction a little longer. Just to see where it might lead. Guilt pricked at her conscience, but the heady rush of the unexpected, the alluring possibility of something more, was a potent draw. Squeezing the piping bag more firmly, the frosting threatened to explode. She was toying with disaster, and a dangerous part of her didn't want to stop. Pre-speech jitters. A symphony of clinking crystal and convivial chatter enveloped Maya as she threaded through the pre-wedding throng. Liam stood sentinel near the patio doors, his posture unusually deflated. Usually radiating self-assurance, he now seemed adrift. Their eyes met, and he offered a wan, almost apologetic smile, beckoning her over. Intrigued, Maya disentangled herself from a debate about the optimal peony-to-rose ratio and steered toward him. "Hey!" she greeted him, striving for a light tone. "You all right? You look like you've seen a banshee." Liam expelled a breath, raking a hand through his already disheveled hair. "Could we find somewhere a bit more private?" His gaze flickered around the room, betraying his unease. Curiosity piqued, Maya nodded and followed him onto the patio, where the muted ambience offered a welcome respite from the indoor clamor. The descending sun painted long silhouettes across the meticulously kept lawn. He leaned against the ornate railing, his back to the revelry. "It's the speech," he blurted, the words escaping in a torrent. "I'm petrified." Surprise flickered across Maya's face. "The best man's speech? But you are Liam. You're practically a virtuoso of public speaking." He scoffed, the sound devoid of mirth. "That's just professional Liam. This is different. This is for Ben, for Sarah. And everyone expects some side-splitting, soul-stirring oration, and all I've got is a jumble of half-formed stories and a growing sense of impending disaster." He winced. "I keep imagining myself blanking completely, every word evaporating, just standing there mute, while 100 pairs of eyes bore into me." Maya stepped closer, the railing's chill seeping into her back. A vulnerability shimmered in his eyes, a side she rarely witnessed. "Hey," she said softly. "Breathe. Nerves are normal. It just shows how much you care. Easy for you," he muttered, avoiding her gaze. "You're a natural orator. Remember that toast at your sister's shower? Even Uncle Gary was tearing up." A subtle flush rose on Maya's neck. "That was different. That was family. This is high pressure." "Exactly!" Liam cried, throwing up his hands. "What if I wreck everything? What if I say something mortifying? What if I just completely crash and burn?" Maya regarded him for a beat, her expression gentling. "You won't. Because you know Ben inside and out. Speak from the heart. Tell a story, crack a joke, whatever feels right. No one expects perfection, Liam. They expect you." She paused, And I know you. You're witty, you're intelligent, and you genuinely care about Ben and Sarah. That's all that truly matters. He met her gaze, really saw her, and Maya felt a ripple of something foreign, a feeling that transcended mere camaraderie. His eyes, usually bright with mischief, now reflected a raw, almost childlike trepidation. The charming veneer had dissolved, revealing the genuine Liam beneath, a man with profound feelings. A hesitant smile played on his lips. Thanks, Maya. I needed that. He straightened, inhaling deeply. Maybe I just need another dose of courage in a champagne flute. Perhaps, Maya concurred, echoing his smile. Or perhaps you just needed reassurance that you won't spontaneously self-combust mid-speech. The atmosphere between them crackled with a newfound energy, subtly transformed by the shared vulnerability. A quiet shift had occurred, forging a deeper connection in its wake. The truth crumbles. The music throbbed, a deep resonance that vibrated within Maya as she followed Liam out onto the veranda. A cool draft, scented with pine and sea salt, kissed her heated cheeks. He leaned against the wrought iron railing, the cityscape painting shimmering lines across the depths of his eyes. A flicker of something unguarded, a break in his poised demeanor, caught her off guard. It was disarming. Liam, she murmured, her voice barely audible above the revelry spilling from inside. I need to be honest about something. He faced her, questioning etched in his expression. Is everything all right? You seem different this evening. Different? She felt like an imposter in borrowed finery. It's complicated. It's about who I truly am. As if summoned by her discomfort, a server appeared, proffering flutes of champagne. Liam accepted too, offering a brief, grateful nod. He lifted his glass. To complications. Maya sighed inwardly. Liam, really? This is important. She placed her champagne on a nearby pedestal table, the crystal chiming softly. I'm not who you think. The truth is I work at the bakery. I know you work at the bakery. He chuckled, a playful curve to his lips. The absolute best croissants I've ever devoured. Did you think I wouldn't hunt down the artist behind those flaky masterpieces? Her carefully constructed confession was crumbling into a sugary heap. No, you don't get it. That's all I do. I'm just a baker. This whole charade, the party, the flirting. It's been a complete misunderstanding. A bellow of laughter suddenly pierced the air. A boisterous man, flushed with drink, lurched towards them. Liam, you old dog. Haven't seen you two turtle-doves all night. Slinking off for a bit of privacy, eh? He winked broadly, then slapped Liam on the back with enough force to make him stumble. Just wanted to say, you landed a knockout. This woman is dynamite. He gave Maya a sweeping appraisal, then meandered away, still chuckling. Liam straightened his blazer, a hint of color rising in his face. Uncle Jerry's always been enthusiastic in his affections. He refocused on Maya. So you were saying? Maya inhaled deeply, bracing herself. I'm not your brother's fiancée. I was just delivering the cake. There was a mistake. You confused me with someone else entirely. The words spilled out, a torrent released. She studied his reaction, expecting annoyance, perhaps even outrage. For a long moment, Liam simply stared, his face a blank canvas. Then, a slow smile blossomed, transforming his features. This was no practiced politeness. It was genuine, unrestrained amusement. You're just a baker? He chuckled, the sound unexpectedly light. You've got to be kidding me. He raked a hand through his dark hair, shaking his head in disbelief. All this time, I was under the impression. He trailed off, still grinning. I should have corrected you sooner, Maya admitted, a wave of relief washing over her. But you were so charming, and I completely lost my nerve. His amusement deepened. Charming? I thought I was being incredibly brazen. I was trying to make an impression on my soon-to-be sister-in-law. He threw back his head and erupted in genuine, heartfelt laughter that echoed across the balcony. This is unbelievable. Maya found herself joining in, the tension draining from her body. So you're not angry? He sobered slightly, his eyes locking with hers. Angry? No. Actually, I'm relieved. I thought I was teetering on the edge of madness, suddenly captivated by my brother's fiancée. Now I know I'm simply captivated by a very talented baker who clearly knows her way around a croissant. He took a step closer, the city lights dancing in his eyes. And who, I might add, looks breathtaking in borrowed couture. Eleanor's wrath. The delicate music and convivial hum of the reception dissolved as Eleanor edged nearer to the veranda, the fine weave of her gown catching on the filigree ironwork. Liam's tone, normally a comforting reassurance, now grated on her. I simply assumed, with you being the entertainment and all, he stammered, a nervous tremor in his voice. You were captivating. Maya's response, barely a breath, demanded Eleanor's full attention. I already said it was a mistake. A foolish one. Foolish? This transcended mere foolishness. It was a full-blown calamity. Eleanor felt the heat climb her neck, staining her skin a furious crimson. She tightened her grip on the champagne flute until her fingers ached. This woman, this interloper, had not only ensnared her brother, but dared to dismiss it so casually? Eleanor swept through the doorway, the abruptness of her entrance cutting Liam off mid-sentence. Two pairs of eyes swung toward her, reflecting a blend of mortification and alarm. The twinkling lights adorning the patio seemed to falter, mirroring the brewing tempest in Eleanor's gaze. Maya, is it? The honeyed sweetness of Eleanor's voice thinly veiled the rage boiling within. Liam was just recounting your performance. The word hung in the air, heavy with accusation. A telltale rose suffused Maya's cheeks. She straightened, though her gaze darted uncertainly between Eleanor and Liam. I can explain everything. I believe you've elucidated quite enough already, Eleanor retorted, her voice gaining volume. The cheerful background noise seemed to recede, replaced by the frantic drumbeat in her ears. You've turned this wedding into a farce. A humiliation for us all. Liam moved to intercede, his hand outstretched in supplication. Eleanor, please. It wasn't entirely her doing. Eleanor whirled on him, her eyes flashing. Not her doing? She deliberately misled you. She arrived under false pretenses and seduced you. The charge hung suspended, palpable as smoke. Maya recoiled, her eyes widening in dismay. That's not how it unfolded. Then enlighten me, Maya. Eleanor challenged, her tone dripping with derision. Did you imagine you could simply waltz in, bewitch my brother, and then vanish without consequence? This isn't a paperback romance. It's my brother's wedding. The fragrance of roses and lilies, previously so inviting, now felt oppressive, stifling. Eleanor closed the distance between them, her voice dropping to a menacing murmur. You will leave. Immediately. I don't care about your travel arrangements. I don't care if you're stranded. Just remove yourself from my sight and from this celebration. You've done more than enough damage. Eleanor observed, her jaw clenched, as Maya's posture crumbled. The vibrant self-assurance she'd projected earlier evaporated, leaving behind a wan and diminished figure. Without a word, Maya turned and walked away, her head bowed in defeat. Eleanor watched her recede, the champagne glass trembling in her hand. The taste of victory was ashes in her mouth. A groomsman's defense. A hush fell over the room, thick and uncomfortable. Maya stood frozen, mortified, caught between Eleanor's icy glare and the sea of confused faces. Before Maya could stammer out an explanation, Liam stepped forward, a confident smile plastered on his face, though Maya could see a flicker of panic in his eyes. Actually, he announced, his voice cutting through the silence, this is entirely my fault. Every head swiveled towards him. Eleanor raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. Yours, Liam? Yes, he said, approaching Maya. I asked Maya to fill in. There was a slight emergency. The band's lead singer called in sick at the last minute, and I knew Maya had a phenomenal voice. I figured, why not give everyone a little surprise? Maya stared at him, dumbfounded. He was improvising, and doing a surprisingly good job of it. A surprise, you say? Eleanor's voice dripped with skepticism. Liam turned his charm on full blast, his eyes twinkling. Exactly. I wanted to add a little spontaneity to the evening. And I knew Maya could handle it. Didn't you all think she was wonderful? He gestured to the crowd, who, relieved to have a non-scandalous explanation, murmured in agreement. She was, someone shouted from the back. Best rendition of At Last I've ever heard. Liam beamed. See? Maya saved the day. She stepped in on a moment's notice and delivered an incredible performance. It takes guts to do that, especially in front of, well, all of you. He turned back to Eleanor, his expression softening. I apologize if I overstepped, Eleanor. It was a spur-of-the-moment decision, and I should have cleared it with you first. I got caught up in the excitement of the evening and thought it would be a fun surprise. I never meant to cause any offense. Eleanor studied him, her expression unreadable. The tension in the room was still palpable, but it had shifted, subtly, from accusation to something akin to curiosity. Liam's earnestness seemed to be working its magic. Spontaneity is not usually something I associate with wedding receptions, Liam, Eleanor said finally, her voice still cool, but lacking its earlier edge. However, she paused, considering. The performance was adequate. And I appreciate your initiative in salvaging the situation. A collective sigh of relief swept through the room. Liam grinned, his relief evident. Thank you, Eleanor. I promise it won't happen again. He winked, adding under his breath, just loud enough for Eleanor to hear. Unless, of course, you'd like an encore? Eleanor's lips twitched, a hint of a smile playing on them. Let's not push our luck, Liam. She turned to Maya, her gaze softer now. Thank you for stepping in, Miss Davis, Maya supplied, still reeling from the whirlwind of the past few minutes. Maya Davis. Miss Davis. Your willingness to assist is appreciated. Eleanor turned back to the crowd, her voice regaining its usual crispness. Now, if we can return to the scheduled program. As Eleanor moved away, Liam squeezed Maya's hand briefly. Thanks for playing along, he murmured, his eyes sparkling with mischief. You were brilliant. Maya could only stare after him, a strange mix of gratitude, confusion, and something else entirely bubbling inside her. He had saved her, yes, but at what cost? And why? Cake topper chemistry. Maya, you were incredible. Chloe, the bride, squeezed Maya's hand, her eyes shining. Seriously, you saved the day. I was about to have a meltdown when the band went AWOL. Maya blushed, still slightly breathless from her impromptu performance. It was nothing, really. Just happy I could help. Chloe linked her arm with Maya's, steering her away from the dance floor and toward a table laden with wedding favors. Liam thinks so too. He was practically glued to the stage, or rather to you. She winked. He's a great guy, you know. A little reserved, maybe, but with hidden depths. Maya raised an eyebrow, amusement dancing in her eyes. Are you trying to set us up, Chloe? Chloe feigned innocence. Me? Never. I just think you two radiate a certain compatible energy. Besides, she lowered her voice conspiratorially. He's been moping around ever since Sarah dumped him last month. He needs a little spark. Maya chuckled. Well, I hardly think I'm a walking defibrillator. Maybe not, Chloe conceded. But you're certainly more interesting than the centerpieces. Speaking of which, she gestured towards the wedding cake, a towering masterpiece of buttercream and sugar flowers. The cake topper's gone rogue. Liam was supposed to fix it, but he's hopeless with anything delicate. Maybe you could lend a hand? I know you're artistic. Maya hesitated, glancing across the room. Liam was standing near the bar, looking slightly lost in the crowd. I don't know, please. Chloe's eyes were pleading. It would mean the world to me. And besides, she added with a mischievous grin, it's a perfect opportunity to test that compatible energy theory. With a sigh and a smile, Maya relented. All right. Lead the way. The cake topper, a delicate porcelain bride and groom, lay in pieces on a small table beside the cake. Liam was already there, looking frustrated. "Hey," he said, his voice a low rumble. "Chloe said you might be able to salvage this disaster." Maya examined the broken figures. "Looks like the groom lost his head." She picked up the tiny porcelain head and a tube of adhesive. "Don't worry, I think we can fix him." Liam watched as Maya carefully applied the glue, her brow furrowed in concentration. He was close enough to smell the faint scent of her perfume, something floral and subtly sweet. He hadn't really noticed her before, not until she was belting out that song, commanding the stage. Now, watching her delicate hands work, he couldn't help but feel a pull towards her. "Okay," Maya said, holding the groom's head in place. "Just need to hold it steady for a few minutes while it sets." She looked up at Liam, her eyes sparkling. "Mind lending a hand?" He nodded, his throat suddenly dry. He carefully positioned his fingers around hers, gently supporting the groom's head. Their hands brushed, sending a jolt of electricity through him. The air crackled with an unspoken tension. They stood there for what felt like an eternity, hands intertwined, focused on the tiny porcelain figures. The wedding party faded into background noise. It was just them, the broken cake topper, and the undeniable spark that had ignited between them. "I think that should do it," Maya said finally, pulling her hand away. Liam's fingers lingered for a moment before releasing her. They carefully placed the repaired cake topper back on the cake, the porcelain couple standing tall and proud. "Perfect," Chloe said, appearing beside them, her eyes twinkling. "See? Cake topper chemistry. I knew it!" A sweet proposal. The music pulsed a little louder, a signal that the DJ was wrapping up. Guests were beginning to peel off, forming clusters near the coat check or spilling out onto the veranda, the night air cool against flushed faces. Maya gathered her satchel, a nervous flutter tickling her stomach. She'd stayed far longer than she'd intended, drawn in by the easy laughter and surprisingly engaging conversation. Especially one conversation. Liam appeared beside her, seemingly out of nowhere. He'd changed out of his groomsman's suit, now sporting a simple, dark blue t-shirt that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. "Leaving already?" he asked, his voice a low rumble that vibrated through her. She nodded, suddenly self-conscious under his intense gaze. "I should. Early start tomorrow." A half-truth. She could sleep in, but admitting that felt too revealing. He ran a hand through his already tousled hair, a gesture that somehow made him seem even more appealing. I really enjoyed talking to you tonight, Maya. I'd like to do it again sometime." Her heart did a little skip. She hadn't imagined he'd feel the same way. She'd been so certain he'd quickly realize she wasn't who he thought she was, that the conversation wouldn't last past the initial confusion. But he was still here, asking for more. "I enjoyed it too," she admitted, her cheeks warming. "More than I expected." A hopeful grin spread across his face, crinkling the corners of his eyes. "So, how does one go about talking to you again? Carrier pigeon? Smoke signals?" She laughed, the sound light and airy. "I believe most people use this newfangled invention called a telephone." She reached into her satchel, pulling out a small, silver business card case. She flipped it open and plucked out a card, the paper cool against her fingertips. "Here. My number's on there." He took the card, his fingers brushing hers. A jolt of electricity shot up her arm. He stared down at the card for a moment, as if memorizing every digit. "Maya with a Y," he murmured. "Got it." He looked up, his eyes sparkling with genuine enthusiasm. I'll call you. Or text. Whichever feels less like I'm stuck in the 90s. Text is fine," she said, trying to suppress the giddy smile that threatened to break across her face. "Great. Fantastic even." He paused, then added, "Drive safe." She turned to leave, a lightness in her step that hadn't been there before. As she walked towards the exit, she glanced back. He was still standing there, staring after her, the small silver card clutched in his hand. The next afternoon, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated for a moment, a silly nervousness creeping in. Then, she swiped to unlock her phone and read the message. Liam. Cakes R Us needs to create a replica of the Eiffel Tower in buttercream frosting by Friday. Think you can handle it? Also Pizza Friday? Maya laughed, the sound bubbling up from deep inside her. He was funny. And clever. And intriguing. She quickly typed back, buttercream Eiffel Tower? Child's play. But pizza is an abomination. Italian food is an art form, Liam. We should start with pasta.